Hi, it's Joanna Toch. I am starting a live. I'm going to be talking to Vaz Constantinou from TR Solicitors today. She's going to be joining me and we're going to be talking about what she's up to, all things family law. Feel free to put a comment below and pressing the wrong button. And join us with your comments. So should be coming on. Are you there? Oh, here she is. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Joanna. How are you?
I'm really well. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Having a nice, relaxed Sunday, and yeah, I've been looking forward to joining you this evening. Yeah.
So, Vaz, we met at the divorce fair. I'm not sure if we met before. If we have, sorry, just not.
I don't think we did. I don't think that was our
chat.
first encounter. Our first of hopefully many to come. Yes.
Yeah, we had a nice chat. Really like what you're doing, and thank you for joining me. So just thought I'd start by just asking a little bit about you and how you got into family law, and if you love it, and if you don't love it, just don't say.
Thankfully, I do.
Tell us about you.
So yes, as you said, thank you for that kind introduction. I'm Vaz Constantinou. I've been practicing family law for almost 20 years now. I've got the grey hair to show for it, and I do love what I do. I wouldn't have continued doing it for so long if I hadn't. So I started off training in Cardiff city centre, moved to London about 17 years ago now. Was working for Tyrer Roxburgh for about 7 years, and then joined as a partner. And I have been a partner there now for almost 3 years. And I think I've obviously got a wealth of experience behind me. It's been a very interesting journey. The beauty of family law cases is that every case is so different. The theory behind it is the same, but everybody's situation is so different, and you know, the way you deal with each case has to be so personal, and dealing with your clients. And that's what I love about family law. While I was doing my degree, my legal practice course, obviously had the opportunity to venture into many other areas of law, and my heart I just kept gravitating to family law because it's almost like it had an element of psychology behind it as well. And I've always been really interested in psychology. So just gauging with people, you know, really finding out what does the client want at the outcome, what do they want to achieve, because it's so easy to get stuck in the rut of this is what the law says, this is what the judge is. But you've got to listen, you've got to really hear what your client wants. Some clients want you to really go for everything, some clients a bit more passive, a bit more willing to just settle and be done with it. So I really enjoy that part of it, you know, working, almost creating a friendship with your clients and working as a team. And yeah, so that's what I've been doing, and that's the main reason. You know, and it's just so satisfying when you have an outcome and clients have that element of peace. So whether it's a successful outcome to your case or not, the one thing that really strikes me is that there is an element of closure and peace at the end of most cases. You know, people spend a year or so going through the ups and downs of roller coaster, and then there's just whatever the outcome is, whether it's through a contested hearing or through an agreement, it's this weight that's lifted off one's shoulders, and it's really satisfying.
Yeah, it's really unusual, isn't it, in as an area of law, that you are obviously you have all those that training as a lawyer, but it's kind of just such a mixture of things, isn't it? That balance of seeing what the facts are. I always think there's some kind of key to the case, and sometimes like, what is it? And then something will come out, yeah, I get it now, I get it. And I always want to understand it. And I really echo what you say, is trying to understand it is the first thing, isn't it, really?
Definitely, and just gauging, like I said, it's just gauging what does the client want. Obviously, we're there to give advice, For example, I had a case recently where client was adamant that they wanted to get business valued. My advice was, you're wasting your time, wasting your money. There is no, this, it's a business of income rather than of value. But the client was adamant. She wanted to get it valued. And in my experience, I know that it's not going to be to her best interest. But you have to, all we can do is just give our advice and then run with what the client wants you to do. So it can be difficult. It's a very taxing area of law, and because you're dealing with emotions, you're dealing with people who may not be thinking straight at the time because they're so emotive and they're so lost in the system. And I think the other thing I would sort of really want to get out there is how difficult it is to manage clients' expectations of family courts, because there's this expectation, if one party or if your opponent is playing unfair, we're going to run to court and we're going to get costs. But in explaining to the client how difficult it is to get costs in family law proceedings can be very difficult, particularly when the other side is playing unfair or tactically dealing with things that may be seen unfair, but you can still run a hearing. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, I know exactly what you mean. And it's really tough, isn't it? Because most people haven't been into a family court before. And when I was, quickly doing a bit of an intro to this, I did a reel and I was saying, you don't get to watch family cases. And so people don't know what to expect, rightly so. It's not, most people aren't doing this serially. And even if they'd been in a family case before, you have yourself, you have the other party, you have your lawyer, their lawyer, and it's a whole mixture that what the court does. And it can be that the others, there's perception or that they are really doing the wrong thing. But the courts have a massive hesitation, don't they, in ordering costs in any shape or form. And even if you do get a cost order, you can see that can tip things and make more problems. It's really tricky. It's not, it is civil law, but it's not the same as a contract about, a disputed cargo or something. It's got, as you say, it's that psychological side, and costs aren't usually awarded, and that is really tricky, isn't it?
Yeah, and I raise this only because I'm sort of encountering that in one of my cases at the moment, and it's very unfair, So you have a case where, the other side may, there's directions to file something weeks, sometimes months before a hearing, and there isn't that strict timeline in family law proceedings as it is, like you said, in contract, civil proceedings, and they may do it such, last minute, and then the client saying, but rightly so, you comply with your directions, he or she have complied, and the others have just dropped it in last minute, and going to court and we're going to get costs. And no, unfortunately, it doesn't quite work like that, and it adds to the acrimony, unfortunately. I can't emphasize enough how good it is and how refreshing it is when you have an opponent working in harmony with you as well, and how it can just really change the direction of proceedings when directions are complied with properly, and ultimately the goal is to get a settlement at the end of it and to do your best to keep it out of court. My goodness, once you're in court, the main gainers are the lawyers, unfortunately. And I do say that, I'm open to all my clients about that. If you can't reach a settlement, it's going to cost you a heck of a lot of money, and you're going to be lining the pockets of the lawyers, and your pot is going to be diminishing. And so I just really want to get that across to people, wherever you can, you've got to try and reach a settlement out of court, especially when the pot is quite modest as well.
Yeah, you do, you have your firm has a public, so I would call it legal aid still, but public funding franchise, doesn't it? So you're doing those cases, and then are you dealing with people with fairly limited assets? Obviously they're more assets because they're arguing.
It ranges, Joanna. So it's, I've got cases. I try to deal with the mid to high end net worth clients. So we do deal with legal aid, but slowly we're sort of edging more towards the mid to high net worth, especially being in London. Those are the majority of the cases. You don't have many many assets in London where they venture into the low end side of things. Obviously, there are still those type of cases, and happy to help wherever we can. But majority of the cases are in the middle. They're on the middle where, there is something there to fight for, but if you invest a lot of money, it could change the way, the actual value of the pot. So you've got to be really, really careful.
Yeah, I hate those cases where sometimes they came to me as a barrister. It's why I set up Family Law Cafe, actually, where you thought, oh, if they just hadn't spent that money, this would have been easy to sort out. And it's actually become so difficult because of the costs. And I think that's, when it comes to you, and if you get it early days, you can kind of see straight away if they're just reasonable and behave reasonably, there is going to be just about enough. But those cases where there's not enough money, it's heartbreaking, isn't it?
It is. And it's not even about the money sometimes, Johnny. It's the stress that comes with it as well. And the waste of life. Life is so precious. You should be going, especially when you have children, you should be going out there and enjoying life and going to the parks and, not having this awful cloud over you. But at the same time, it's important to fight for what's fair, and it's important to get the best outcome, because it is a life-changing course of proceedings. If you just settle because you want it over and done with, it could affect the rest of your life. It's the roof over your head. It's the income that you're going to be getting for the rest of your life. It's really important. Particularly, I find cases where you're dealing, and I'm finding more and more cases that the age ranges from 50, 60 plus, and many clients and many, dare I say, women who have been financially dependent on their husbands. And I think the society that we're living in has become, and rightly so, apparent to them that they don't have to sustain that controlling relationship, and they've realized that they can break free. But it's daunting, because when you've been financially dependent on somebody for so many years, and you don't have that source of income to go and fight that case at your twilight years, it can be very, very daunting. But there are ways around it, and you've got your legal aid orders, and there's help for everybody, one way or another, whether that be by litigation loans or, just getting maintenance pending suit applications in. It's making people aware that there's options out there. I think that's so important.
Yeah, I often think about divorces that there's a very different factors, ages, when people in 30s, early 40s, very different way it proceeds to the 50s to 60s, and then I've done them actually older, and completely different factors. I mean, it is the same law, and I think that just highlights how the law is the same, but the facts are so different. Because if you've made your money, you're not going to remake it, if you're going through a divorce in your 50s, 60s, and so it's really hard fought. Whereas sometimes I find it a little bit easier. Parties are younger, they're more willing to even just walk away from things. I'm going to make that money again. But it's really tough going through divorce at that age, because you're not going to make that money again effectively, and people, I find they're more hard fought.
Absolutely.
I don't know if you found that.
Definitely. And as I said, it is very, very daunting. Like you said, when you're young, and often I say this to my clients, you've got the rest of your life ahead of you. You've got to fight for what is right for you, and make sure, if you've got small children, you've got to ensure that they've got their stability, their security, they have their home over their head. You don't want to be out on the street. I get that. But, it's, you like I said, you've got your life ahead of you to go. But when you're in your, the later stages of life, it's scary, because we all strive for a nice retirement, to sit back and relax. We work hard all our lives, and we want to have a good retirement. And when all of a sudden that pot has to be divided, has to be shared, and it's not going to be as comfortable as it was, had been a joint income, it's scary. It's scary for people, and it's a hard realization sometimes. But it may be a sacrifice for a happy life in other ways. I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah. And what are you seeing? What's you seeing a lot of at the moment? Anything in particular that you're seeing, and any kind of tips
Well,
for people that might be listening?
so yes, I
How's the
mean,
new divorce procedure? How's that affecting your
well,
practice?
I'll tell you something, Joanne. I really thought I was going to be getting a lot of inquiries saying, the new no fault divorce laws have come into effect. I've been waiting for ages to go. I haven't found that. I'm still getting a lot of inquiries, and I'm saying to clients, do you know about this new fault divorce the no fault divorce, that's the new laws that have come into force? And they're still oblivious to this new legislation. So I think it's really important to keep sort of making people aware. Yes, there is this new law. It's no fault. You don't have to apportion blame. It can be more straightforward now. It's a lot more amicable. You don't have to have this acrimony to get divorce and blame somebody else. So definitely, I would say since the pandemic, sadly, there have been an apparent, clear rise in divorces. But as always, this time of year, we're inundated with child arrangement issues, going on holiday. Separated parents want to take their children on holiday. How can they do that? The parents saying no, there's fears of deduction, etc. So there's definitely a rise in interest, but that, as is always the case this time of year, pre-pandemic and current circumstances.
Yeah, I suppose
Those are the
because of the
two.
pandemic and now people couldn't travel. So now there's a bit of a rush. And
Yeah.
so those cases are coming up, aren't they?
Oh yes, yes.
Hmm.
Hadn't been home to wherever for ages to see mum, and I want to go and spend the whole summer holidays, but the other parent is not too keen, or it's yeah. I mean, it was always a busy time of year for those types of situations, those cases, but more so than ever now. People are desperate to get away, and
And what would
sometimes
you
they're being
say,
held.
just if someone's in that situation and say they're the parent, they want to take their child away, I don't know, for 4 weeks to India. Let's just pick any example, because they haven't got to see their family. Maybe they've got family out there. What's the best way forward in that situation?
So what I always say to clients, the starting point is to try and reassure the other parent. So, for example, confirm that you're going to provide travel details, provide copies of the flight tickets there and back, details of accommodation, propose that we have the beauty of video calling now, whether that be through FaceTime, WhatsApp, MS Messenger. There's so many ways. Zoom, you could even Zoom when you're over there, or Teams, whatever. So, that's your starting point, is reassurance. And, say that the child is going to benefit out of this. They're going to have a lovely 2-week holiday, or even 4 weeks, however long, and they will still have that interaction with the other parent. That hopefully should work, and that works for the majority of my cases. Particularly if you're providing with flight tickets, then they can see that you're returning the child on this particular date. But sadly, that's not always the case, and there are difficult parents out there, or parents with genuine concerns that the child won't be returned. And there are applications to the court that you can make, so that if you feel as though that parent is being extremely unreasonable and the child is going to lose out on a holiday that they deserve, then yes, you can make an application to the court for a specific issue order, and the court will hopefully then order for you to be able to travel out of the country for that specified period of time. You try and get that as your last, make that your last resort, because again, court proceedings are costly. They create more acrimony and more tension. The starting point is always try and interact with the other parents and provide that reassurance and that comfort. And you should generally, 9 times out of 10, well, maybe not necessarily 9 times out of 10, but a high percentage of cases do get resolved on like that.
And I
with
suppose,
mediation, yeah.
you can provide us, if it's via solicitors, there's a solicitor's letter, they've got, it's a sort of contract between them, isn't it, without having to go to court. And just flip that over. If you're the parent objecting, what's your advice?
Well, again, the advice is, you have to have grave concerns. You have to have genuine concerns of abduction more than anything. So, look at the situation. Does the other parent have property here? Do they have a job? Do they have family members here? You know, look at the entire picture, and how realistic is it going to be that that child or your child is going to be taken and never to be returned? And if your concerns are genuine and you have evidence that there is a genuine concern, then you can make an application for a prohibited steps order to the court, so prohibiting the other parent from taking the child abroad. But, I have to emphasise, there have to be genuine concerns, and there has to be evidence in support of that. So, for example, if you see that if your dad and mum puts her house up for sale 2 months before, and at the same time is saying to you, we're going to Brazil, where her entire family are, then maybe that will be reasons for concern, and you may want a prohibited steps order then. But if it's clear that they're just having a lovely little holiday and they're going to be coming back, then I'd be urging my clients to take a realistic and pragmatic approach and let the child have that holiday. They deserve to feel the sun between the toes, don't they?
Yeah, it's bringing to mind years ago going off to court because my client had actually, he didn't usually collect the child, but he had seen a for sale notice, and nothing had been said, so rightly was a little bit concerned, and it did end up being a application for removal from the jurisdiction. The mother was leaving, but it was only because he saw the for sale sign, and we did run to court. But I think, I always say keep the lines of communication open. That's your way of reducing costs, reducing stress and anxiety, even if it's tough. To keep that communication, you just need to do it, because when there's mistrust and confusion and positioning, it can make things much harder for you, your child. You can spend more money. I think a lot of family law is about people not understanding each other, isn't it?
Oh, 100%. And I think that's where a good solicitor will, there's so many clients who can't see the wood from the trees. They are so lost, and understandably, when you're stressed, it does create a cloud. I say to my clients, it's when you're stressed, it's almost like somebody's wrapped a load of cotton wool around you and you can't see clearly. And a good solicitor will help to clear that fog, to clear that, and to give you the right pathway, the right understanding through experience. But at the same time, we've got to be really careful, because we're going to be saying to a client, you're fine, that he's not or she's not going to abduct the child, and then tomorrow they go and abduct the child. You have to be really cautious. But the key thing is there has to be evidence. You've got to have clear red flags that of serious concern, not because you don't want to part from your child for 2 weeks. And I'm a mum, I have 2 children, and the thought of somebody taking my kids away from me for 2 weeks pains me. And I often say that to clients. I do get it, I do understand. It's difficult, it's very difficult, but you have to change your mindset when you're in that situation, and understand, just as much as it's hard for you, it's hard for the other parent. And that poor child, you can't slice them in half. You have to learn to share. And it is difficult, but there's ways around it. You can speak to divorce coaches and other professionals that can help you to to clear that fog. But people do get there. They do get there. It's a roller coaster.
So Vaz, what are your predictions for I'm finding with family law, just throw in my thoughts that I've been doing family law since 1992, and I feel like I've seen fashions coming in, just different ways of judges looking at things. I don't know if that's a dangerous question to ask. Where do you think family law is going, or what are your predictions of where it's going? Any thoughts?
I definitely see, with this new no fault divorce, I can see things, the way the law's paving their way towards more people trying for people to become more amicable. And, I do think by having this no fault divorce, it takes the stress. What I found was so many people were so focused on unreasonable behaviour, on adultery, and it took away, that created more acrimony in the finances. So you had the affair, I deserve more money out of the pot, which isn't the case, because as you know, Joanna, divorce and finances are dealt with entirely separately, unless you want to run a conduct case, which is very rare, and it has to be very extreme. So by taking away that blame, I think people will be more reasonable. I'd like to think people will be more reasonable when dealing with the division of their assets. Yes, the pain will still be there, but it's not going to be at the forefront of people's mind, because when you're writing it down in a divorce petition, having to list examples of unreasonable behaviour, where they may have been dampened, those emotions, because you're ready to take that leap of getting divorced, by having to document them in a divorce petition, it raises it and it highlights it again. And I think that overspills onto the financial side. I don't know if you agree with me or not.
No, I think that's a really good point, because it's not a good place to start, is it? By saying this person did this and that. And there's lots of cases that I have, and because I suppose I've been doing it for so long, and I know that this the old divorce law was written in 1968 or 9, I can't remember which now, so old, and none of it matters. And as far as the judges were concerned, none of it mattered. You had to just jump through these hoops. I would explain, look, it doesn't matter. You know, I know you've been divorced for unreasonable behaviour, but that is a private document. No one can see it apart from the parties and their lawyers. And all you're getting at the end, you know, the decree nisi and the decree absolute is a means to an end. But lots of people really, really badly affected by it, and knowing that and saying, I didn't do anything at all. They put all these things in. It was saying they were having, you know, another relationship or whatever the story was, and really upsetting for people, and who've tried to then, I want to, you know, try to go back to court, and the judges have just kind of said, no, it just doesn't matter, because by the end, in the last 10, 15, 20 years of that system, it was just ludicrous. On the one hand, parties, 90% of divorces were on unreasonable behaviour, and they had to show enough events to get it past the judge. And then on the other hand, the judges themselves knew it was pointless. And as you say, it's just people, why have to go through that? So hopefully with the new system, people realising that it's a no-fault divorce. My only worry is that they haven't reformed the system for finances, and there's all sorts of issues there, and it is complex. And I think I've like literally 3 in the last few weeks where people have just signed all the documents and not realised that they've signed up to a consent order, which is really unfair, and I'm having to just help them and work that out, because divorce finances can be complex, as you know, and not always complex, but they can be, and there isn't yet, as far as I'm concerned. I think there needs to be reform there. It's not enough to reform just the divorce system. You need to do a bit more work on the finances, because the Matrimonial Causes Act is 1973, you know, and I know there's a lot of discretion for the judges, you know, can use, and it's, you know, you can look at case law, but I think they could still simplify divorce finances.
I think so. I think the most difficult thing for me when it comes to finances is when you have the clients come and say, my friend got 70%, why am I not entitled? And I want 70%. And like you said, the courts have so much discretion, and, you know, you may leave the FDR, the financial dispute resolution hearing, with an unfair recommendation from the judge, and the client's coming out saying, but why, you know, my client, my friend and Joe Bloggs down the road got this, why am I not, you know, why are they only saying 50%? And trying to explain to the client that every case turns on its own facts, and it depends on what assets are in the pot and everything. It's tricky. It's very, very tricky. And, you know, it's important to recognise that every case is so different. Yeah. There's obviously going to be similarity.
I mean, we know Baroness Deach wanted to do her, you know, just 3 years maintenance, which all lawyers are like, no, that's completely wrong and unfair. But I get why she wanted to keep it simple. I get the intention. And there is, you know, it's a big old story to reform that. But I think paving the way, starting the divorce as being, you know, you don't have to throw about allegations anymore. That's great. But I would like to see a reform of the whole system for matrimonial finances. And I'm a bit worried that, you know, with this 20 weeks, people are not going to get themselves organised in time, and they're going to rush and just say, oh yeah, just 50-50, and that's that. And that isn't, that's a cross check. That is not that's not appropriate for lots of cases. But anyway, I could just talk all day with my
I know. But look, with any change come teething problems, and hopefully things in time will, any teething problems will be ironed out. And
yeah,
at least it's a start. It's a good start.
It is a good start. Okay, I've loved talking to you.
Gosh, it's come to an end already. That was quick.
Yeah, we just could talk all day, but I think we probably end up with nobody here. So lovely to talk to you. And
you too, Jan. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And
definitely. Take care.
Bye, everyone. See you next
Bye-bye.
time.
Bye.
Bye.